Welcome to our groundbreaking pop-up live webinar series. Hello, my name is Luke from Equilibrium Risk. In this, our first series, you can discover a wealth of insight about Martyn's Law, one topic at a time. Each episode is no more than 30 minutes and unveils a brand new facet of Martyn's Law, delivering bite-sized learning, bite-sized learning sessions. But that's not all. In addition to these dynamic webinars, we are also rolling out an exclusive live audio event where you can dive into the conversation and be part of the discussion. Today, I am broadcasting live again across our social media channels, LinkedIn and YouTube. I am monitoring the comments, so if you have any questions, please type them in there and I will try and get round to them and answer them as best I can. So without further ado, let's get into today's topic. Today's topic was supposed to be about how Martyn's Law or how manufacturers can comply with the new legislation. But if you've seen, the consultation period has now been launched. There is a next 6-week period in which the government is asking for your feedback on this new legislation. So I thought I wanted to go into that in a bit more detail and talk about the changes, the minuscule changes that have so far come about since the draft bill was launched last year. But before we get into it, let's have a quick look back. So just to recap, Martyn's Law is a new piece of legislation that has come about because of the Manchester Arena bombings. 22 people lost their lives, including children, and one of the victims was a young lad called Martyn Het. Now, his mother, Fagan Murray, has been campaigning for improved safety, improved preparedness at publicly accessible venues to reduce the likelihood and impact of a terrorist attack. It was mentioned, the new legislation was mentioned in the King's speech back in November, and it's just gone into the consultation period until the 18th of March, where the government is looking for your feedback and your comments on the new legislation. Last week, in the last episode, we spoke about the benefits of Martyn's Law, because at the end of the day, there has to be a business case for businesses, manufacturers to comply with this new legislation. And we looked at benefits such as the improved safety and security of visitors and employees within the organisation. We looked at the reduced financial impact to manufacturers, the reduced likelihood of an attack, and also the impact it would have on a manufacturer's reputation. So if you want to have a look at that episode and have a look back at our previous episodes, you can sort of dive into that in a bit more detail. Previous episodes have included the challenges that manufacturers will face in complying with the new legislation, the impact it's likely to have on manufacturers, and the first episode was why does Martyn's Law affect manufacturers? So if you want to have a look at any of those episodes, have a look back at the previous episodes and dive in to learn a bit more about each of those topics. So on to today's topic, consultation. So the government is committed, or in their words, they are committed to listening to the views of businesses and premises to ensure that the law is accessible, to ensure it's proportionate, and to ensure that small venues, small manufacturers, it is deliverable and they will be able to comply with the new legislation. And part of this consultation period, I've seen a few changes to, excuse me for reading out, it's sort of only just come onto the website recently. There's been a few changes to the standard tier of the security measures. Now, remember, we sort of mentioned in the previous episode, there are 3 tiers. There's the voluntary tier for businesses, manufacturers with below a capacity of 100 people. There is the standard tier, so those businesses that have a capacity of between 100 and 799 people, and there's the enhanced tier of those with a capacity of 800 and over. Now, these changes apply to the standard tier of the security measures. And the first change is that businesses or the person responsible for the legislation in a business has to notify the legislator that they are the responsible person and that their premises falls within the scope of Martyn's Law. So much like the GDPR rule, where you have to notify the ICO that you are the person responsible, it falls within the same sort of remit as that. So you have to notify the regulator that you are the person responsible for the implementation of the Martyn's Law legislation. The next change is that the businesses have to place procedural measures in place. Have to have procedural measures in place, okay, to reduce the likelihood and impact of a terrorist attack. And what that means is businesses in the standard tier aren't expected to actually invest or buy any sort of mitigation processes. So all they have to do is implement or have a plan in place should an event occur or an event is likely to take place. Okay, businesses aren't expected to make any physical alterations or buy any additional equipment in their preparedness plan to comply with the new legislation, which I think is a quite a change away from the draft bill. And lastly, is in contrast to the draft bill, there is no requirement for people that fall within the standard tier of Martyn's Law to conduct any form of specific training for employees or visitors to the location. However, the employees do need to be aware of the procedural plans and need to be sufficiently aware of the procedural plan. So if things do happen, they know what the plan is and they can then act on it. So there are three specific changes to the new legislation that have gone out and are in the consultation period as we speak. So just to reiterate those, okay, you're supposed to notify the regulator that you are the responsible person for complying with Martyn's Law if your business falls within the scope of Martyn's Law. You're required to have procedural measures in place rather than having making physical alterations to your working environment or purchase any additional equipment. You need to have a plan in place, a procedural plan in place. And lastly, you're not expected to train or provide specific training to staff in your facility specific to counter-terrorism training. However, staff are expected to be fully aware of the plans in place should a terrorist attack occur. So what are your thoughts on those developments? I mean, in your opinion, are they good developments? Are they going the right way or are they going in the wrong way? Do you think it makes the legislation more proportionate to the new legislation or to the risk? Do you think it will make things easier for manufacturers, particularly smaller manufacturers, or do you think they don't go far enough? Do you think the threat of terrorism is a considerable threat that we need to be taking it more seriously? Do you even think that we should be having some form of consultation in the implementation of Martyn's Law? Because at the end of the day, we're talking about the threat to life and a threat to public safety. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on these developments in Martyn's Law. If you have any questions, if you want to answer those questions, or you have any questions you'd like to pose, don't forget we have our exclusive live event where you can dive into the conversation and to join in real-time discussions and be part of this experience. Our next event, by way of reminder, is happening tomorrow. I think I'd know that without looking down. It's happening tomorrow at 1 p.m. over on LinkedIn, and I will pop the link to that in the comments below. So just to summarize then, so in a change to the scheduled discussion, we talked about the consultation period of this new legislation and the changes that are slowly coming into play over for the standard tier. We talked about the need to notify the regulator that you are the responsible person for Martyn's Law within your organisation if it falls within the scope. We talked about the need for a preparedness plan rather than having to make any physical alterations or invest in any kit and equipment to comply with Martyn's Law. And then we highlighted the need that there is no requirement to provide any specific training for staff for counter-terrorism. However, staff need to be aware of the preparedness plan should a terrorist attack occur. So there are some significant changes. Our next event is on the 14th of March, and we will be talking about, let me quickly look. I've still done my homework. In fact, I don't know what we're going to be talking about, and I'm looking at Joe. I'm actually going to know. I don't know. I'll put it on exactly what we're going to talk about. Do apologize for that. But that is next Thursday at 9:30. I'd love it if you sort of dive in and come along and watch the webinar and then dive into the audio event on the Thursday afterwards. So thank you very much. All that leaves for me is to say thank you and goodbye.